49ers quarterback Brock Purdy took the league over by storm, and he was able to duplicate it in his second year coming off UCL surgery. But are there still areas for him to improve his game? I mean, he is only 24 years old, and he's still getting his footing in the NFL, which is still crazy to believe considering he was in the Super Bowl last year. Steve Young joined KMBR to kind of discuss those areas in which he believes Brock Purdy can take a few extra steps in and continue to improve his game to be in the tiers of Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes, Lamar Jackson, and what he needs to do in order to get there. Take a listen right here as Steve Young hops on KMBR.
And today, Steve, is actually the anniversary of 2 years ago, the 49ers selecting Brock Purdy with the last pick of the draft. Just give us kind of your big picture breakdown, how much Brock Purdy has meant to this franchise over the last 2 seasons.
Yeah, it's just his processing power. And, like, he has that, you know, and, like, nothing surprises him. So then after a while, we all realize, well, nothing should surprise us either. And then he goes to the Super Bowl and plays solid ball. Like, you keep waiting for the youth or the irrelevant or the something. Like, come on, when's this going to show up? And it just doesn't show up. And we talked about it really early. You could sense it. I smelled it really early. You could see that this kid's like not going to be Ryle. He's got these great processors. He's get the ball out, and now he's got it. Now he's got the challenge of figuring out how to, you know, kind of extend his game. When, you know, like, he was last in the draft for a reason, right? It was the measurables, all the things that you can see. And so those are things over time, he's not going to be able to throw it over the field. We already recognize that. He's not going to be able to run like crazy, but he's got to be able to extend his game so that he can threaten in more places. Because in this league today, you have to, at quarterback, be able to kind of create your own narratives. Like, you can't just be about distributing the football and getting it out quickly. That's a lot of it, 98%, you know, 90% of it. But at the end of the championship seasons, championship games, championship plays, it's really you going and making it happen. And you saw that happen to us in the Super Bowl. And that's where Brock's going to have to extend his game a little bit.
I mean, Steve, is it as simple as, like, Pat Mahomes is the best in the world and nobody can kind of beat him? I mean, how can Brock outduel a Pat Mahomes?
Well, I think you saw some of it in the Packer game, I want to say. He got out and made some big plays with his legs. The yards are there. The league, look at what they did this year. I mean, it's such an unfair fight now. You can't hit the quarterback. I'll describe it as Tom Brady described it as he left the season, his last season. He said, look, Steve, they no longer patrol the middle of the field. The flats are always open, and no one can hit me. So the game, in the name of safety, and I've said this 1,000 times, in the names of safety, the league changed the rules to force defenders to they could not tackle by launching their bodies anymore. They had to bring their feet, and it slowed the game down. Now there's a lot more space, and there's a lot more space for quarterbacks to go get those easy yards, and you saw that at the end of the Super Bowl. And so Brock's going to have to do that more. He's going to have to go get those yards even more so. Now, look, he's not as fast as everybody, and he's not as big as everybody, but he's going to have to do that part of the game. And then, again, I always said when Brock got started, he's going to have to do it in his own way, which might be a couple extra laps. But that Patrick doesn't have to do, that Josh doesn't have to do, that Lamar doesn't have to do, that Joe Burrow doesn't have to do, that even Justin Herbert doesn't have to do, because they can just decide, oh, I feel like going deep, I feel like ripping 190 yards, I feel like, well, you know, they can do things that he's not going to be able to do. So he's going to have to do it in 2 steps. And he's proven that, you know what, I can do it name it in 5 steps. I got you covered. So he's going to do his own Brock way, but I still think he's going to extend his game so that he's more of a physical threat other than just distributing the football. And he's shown that. You just got to do more of it.
And we saw Brock Purdy finish as an MVP finalist after having off-season elbow surgery last year.
It's crazy.
And so,
when's the movie? Marcus, when's the movie?
Yeah, I mean the script's unwritten still, Steve, and it's crazy. So now Brock Purdy is going into this season with his first ever full offseason as a starter. Steve, is it possible that we have not seen the best version of Brock Purdy yet?
Well, you're going to see somebody, like what you've seen him do, I don't know that you can get significantly better once you're a great processor and the pressure doesn't get to you, and, you know, the coach is innovative and thoughtful, and you've got the support. That's the other thing. He's got the Lamborghini kind of talent level around him that what's better is just even like how can he be more efficient? I mean, how can he be less? What are you going to say? I'll throw 5 interceptions in a season. I mean, I guess there's places to go, but I think the consistency of who he is really the Marcus in the way is the upside, right? It's just that he's going to be consistently excellent, and that's. I mean, you might say, okay, what can he get better at? There's some small things that you can kind of pick at, but if we can have more of what we saw last year from Brock Purdy, then we're going to be just fine.
One of the things that I have come to notice about Steve Young and his assessment of the quarterbacks and where he views himself, where he views Brock, I've realized that Steve Young views himself as a Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, Patrick Mahomes type quarterback, and rightfully so. He was one of the early elite running quarterbacks before it was cool to be able to be a runner as a quarterback. And so when I hear him talk about quarterbacks, he likens himself to those types of quarterbacks. And when he talks about Brock, he talks about Brock, I think more so in the category of like your Joe Montanas or your Tom Brady's, where they don't have that like physical edge to them that the other guys do. So when you hear about Steve Young talking about where Brock Purdy can improve his game, it's in the kind of ad lib aspect of the game, the way that these guys are able to create second chance plays, be able to do things with their feet, and create special plays. And you heard Steve Young reference what Patrick Mahomes did in the Super Bowl, and you heard him reference their arm strength when he's talking about, well, they can just sit back there and decide, all right, I'm going to uncork this thing 90 yards. Brock Purdy can't necessarily do that right now, but I think there is an aspect of his game where that can improve. I really do believe that Brock Purdy can continue to develop his deep ball. I think people look at Brock Purdy right now as kind of a canned product. Like this is just who he is. He's an elite processor. He's a good game manager, all these different types of things, but he'll never be that strong arm thrower. And honestly, with the way that I've been tracking Brock throughout his process, starting with pre-draft training all the way till now, I do think there's room for his arm to improve, get better, stronger, and be able to throw the ball deeper. I mean, you look at who he's training with, guys like Will Hewitt down there in Florida, and the way that they attack the biomechanics and are really improving Brock's throwing motion. Brock talked about it, like how his ball, I think he said it. He's like, I went into the pre-draft process not really having an NFL arm, and I came out of my training having an NFL arm. He said, I learned how to throw the ball faster. I learned how to throw it harder, more precisely, more efficiently. And I think with him adding some weight, adding some strength, and being able to build up some muscle in this offseason, now then combining that with efficiencies in his throwing motion, I think he'll be able to throw the ball farther. I really do. I think we're going to see Brock like really uncork a beautiful deep ball in training camp. Like that's my big prediction, is that's where Brock's going to improve, is he's going to improve on the long ball. And I think that's a possibility. We know he can run. We know he can move. We've seen it in the playoffs. But I do think there is areas where he can get better. But what do you guys think? Do you think he will be able to take that jump up to that tier that Steve Young has talked about? Let me know in the comments below. And as always, make sure to like and subscribe for more updates.